afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Raghav Puri and lead strategy for UP's Global Education Division, and I'm thrilled to be moderating this discussion on a topic that sits at the heart of India's economic future, from learning to earning, and to be joined in this discussion by an exceptional panel with a diversity in perspective. We're at a pivotal moment. Digital learning is unlocking access to skills at an unprecedented scale. But can our job market keep pace? The widening skills gap is one of the biggest challenges of our time, with billions, if not trillions, of dollars in economic potential at stake. The rapid rise of AI and automation, coupled with shifting demographics, makes the need for action more urgent than ever. But the answer isn't just about acquiring new skills. It's about learning how to learn. In today's fast-changing world, the ability to adapt and upskill continuously is just as crucial as the skills themselves. A quote I heard recently was, "Learning is no longer just a path to work, learning is the work." For this transformation to succeed, collaboration is key between educators, employers, and policymakers to ensure that the upskilling efforts translate into real job opportunities and meaningful careers. With the diverse expertise and experience on this panel, I'm confident we're in for a thought-provoking discussion. So let's get started. But before we start, let's begin with a quick round of introductions from our panelists. So Nirmit, can I hand over to you for a quick introduction, please?
Hi, I'm Nirmit. I'm building a company called Apna. We have 60 million users, and we have north of 700,000 employers, SMBs and enterprises, and we operate across 900 cities. So we are a leading jobs platform between the 0 to 7-year workforce. Yeah.
Thanks, Saurabh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Saurabh Sanghvi, and I'm a partner with McKinsey, where I help lead our education and workforce work. And also, I co-lead our research around the future of work and how AI and other technologies are impacting skills, jobs, and professions. And so look forward to the discussion.
Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Korns, and I'm a global lead for Skills to Job Tech Alliances from Amazon Web Services. We build regional coalitions with our customers and partners who require entry-level talent, and we collaborate with education providers and government organizations to help to enrich curriculum and prepare students for industry careers.
Matt. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Matt Tyndale. I'm a Managing Director at LinkedIn. I've worked across the APAC region for many years and very, very closely in the education sector and alongside it. And clearly LinkedIn, that is a big part of what we do, which is driving economic growth for the world's economy, and a big part of that is learning and skills as well. Very happy to be here.
Thanks, everyone. So Matt, let me start with you. Could you kick us off with insights from LinkedIn on key trends shaping the education to employment landscape?
I can. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Let's start maybe just a little bit of context about LinkedIn as well, and why we think we're in a unique position to provide views into this as well. So on our platform, we now have 1.1 billion members globally. We have around 70 million organisations and companies on our platform, from sole traders right up to large enterprise. We have 150,000 educational institutions, schools, universities, online providers as well, and currently around 45,000 skills on the platform. And we call this the economic graph. And what this is really a representation of the global economy. And we use this, the data from this in the economic graph, to create economic opportunity and help organisations, institutions, governments as well navigate current and future world of work as well. We also very regularly conduct and release research into primarily the state of work and the future of work as well. We recently released the Work Change Report in January this year, which very much looks at the future of work, skills, what's required to navigate this success. And there's a number of really insightful pieces of data and insights from that report that pertain to the discussion that we've got today. both in regards to skills, education, but also the labour market generally. So a couple of those insights that we've been seeing that are pertinent for today. Like the first one, which sounds obvious, I think when we've all been discussing it, but really can't be understated, is we're on the precipice and currently going through an enormous change in the world of work, a transformation, seismic shift in the way that we are working and that we will work. And this is largely being driven by technology, as it has done throughout history. Whenever you looked at really changes in work, it is largely driven by technology, but it's being exponentially driven currently and into the future by AI, which is changing it significantly. And some of the findings that we're seeing from our platform, our data and our research as well, is this is changing skills and skills requirements. So the data is showing that by 2030, 70% of the skills that we're doing in current roles today will change. So what we're doing today, we will certainly not be tomorrow, and it's evolving at a rapid pace. On LinkedIn, when you look at the 1.1 billion members that we have on our platform, they have added new skills to their platform at an increased rate of about 140% over the last 2 years. And one of the fastest growing skills on those profiles is around AI, and that has increased by about 20-fold over the last few years as well. So it's huge transformation, and we're seeing skills being transformed at a rapid rate. Alongside this, through this change as well, we're seeing roles change. Every year we actually produce a list of the fastest rising jobs across the globe and in markets and countries like India. The fastest growing role in 2025 across the globe was artificial intelligence engineer. Now, this is a role that probably existed a few years ago, but really wouldn't have been anywhere near that top list. So just a sort of an indication of how it's changing a lot. In India, some of the roles that are emerging this year, fastest growing, include airplane maintenance engineer, robotics technician and engineer as well. So a whole lot of new roles that are starting. And I think importantly, and the point out of this as well, is that about 65% of the roles on the list in India this year weren't on the list last year. And that is happening time and time again and will be exacerbated. New roles evolving and emerging and coming in as we see that as well. With this rise of new roles, skills and transformation, we're seeing skills evolve as well. And I think most of us assume that technical skills are going to be the ones that are most important now and in the future. But the data is showing us a two sort of pronged story in regards to skills. The first is the importance of technical skills, certainly, with the workforce, but the most in-demand skills from hiring managers around the globe happen to be human-centric skills. So leadership skills, communication, problem solving. So the skills that enable you to work with technology are going to be the key to success for individuals and organisations around the world. And that is something that I think we just can't underestimate the importance of that as well. So we're seeing this huge transformation. And then when we look at data around the labour market generally across the globe, and in India, 2025 is shaping up to be a more positive year in regards to the labour market. We're seeing increases across the globe in industries that have been a little bit sluggish over the last few years, technology being one of them. We're seeing an increase in demand with jobs around healthcare and infrastructure, which is growing enormously. But we're also seeing a heightened competition for all the new jobs that are emerging here and across the globe as well. So we're seeing that about 80% of professionals in 2025 are set to actively look for new roles. They're looking for new sectors, new industries, new roles in what they're doing. The competition for the jobs are increasing with an 80% increase in the applications for these roles. But we're also seeing that hiring managers, there's a real misstep in regards and alignment between the applications and the requirements for these roles, with about 3/4 of hiring managers globally and in India saying that they don't match, the skills of the candidates are not matching what is required in the organisations. So to sort of sum that up with a lot of the insights that we're seeing from our platform and some of the research we're doing, massive evolution. It can't be understated how it's been driven by AI and technology. We are seeing that skills are evolving rapidly and there is a real underlining fundamentality mandatory for individuals to be lifelong learners, to embrace change, agility, to learn new skills, upskill, reskills on the part of individuals, but also organisations. It's really beholden on organisations as well to understand what these skills are, to plan for them, recruit for them, and really take a skills-first mindset for the success of candidates, but then also the success of their businesses moving forward.
Thanks, Matt. That's really helpful. It really sets the scene in terms of the challenges as well as some of the information out there that sort of is shaping the world we live in today. Nirmit, I'd love to bring you in at this point to really talk about where you see the biggest misalignments between educational job market, given Apna's unique insights into obviously India's youth's aspirations. So I'd love to sort of bring you in to provide some context here as well, please.
Right. So given we work with particularly the younger workforce and all across both MSMEs and enterprise, we have a unique window into seeing how this interactions between job and education happen. And mainly, we end up seeing two major misalignments. The first misalignment which we see is industry readiness. In terms of, say, how deployable is a person if I study at a university, how deployable I am when I'm put into an industry. Let's say I studied marketing, but whatever I study in school, does it teach me the tools like Segment? Does it teach me how to use a CRM? Does it teach me how do I run ads on, say, a LinkedIn or a Facebook? No, it doesn't teach me. So even if I've done my majors in marketing, I'm not a deployable talent. So that's the biggest gap which we see. The second gap which we see, and building what Matt shared more on that data point, is a lot of new skills are coming into the market. So is the workforce future skill ready? And I believe this is where I have an unorthodox point of view. I think so this is going to be the first time where the jobs market is going to move faster than the education market. And it is the education market that has to do the catch up.
Yes.
Because say, for example, if I'm an engineer and I graduate today, if I don't know how to use a Lovable, which is like a fast prototyping tool, or I don't know how to write code on a cursor, I am completely disadvantaged. Because all of this make me more productive. If I'm writing an API, which I learned in my now archaic system, today agents don't work on standard API. They can actually talk to each other in plain English. And how do I go and program these agents? Now, these are the future skills which I think so are also missing in what we will need in future. So industry readiness and future skill readiness for me are, I think so, the two biggest gaps when it comes to jobs and when it comes to education, which we have to play catch up for. And that is one thing. See, as Apna, over the last 4 years, we have matched more than 400 million unique job and candidate applications. And after matching that, given we have gotten that piece right, we believe that solving industry readiness and future skill readiness will be a very, very important piece. And at least now we are planning to, over the next couple of quarters, partner with a bunch of universities to start building that readiness, so that because we already work with employers, we also understand what skills they need, can we directly integrate it into the university? So as soon as the student comes out, the student is ready to be deployed. And of course, there are going to be company-specific things they need to learn, but that is what we are excited about. And I believe that we have to solve as a country. I'm very excited about the demographic dividend of India. But if we don't solve this, it takes very less time for a dividend to be a liability. And so I think so future skill readiness and industry readiness is what education institutions will have to quickly integrate as soon as possible.
That's really interesting. Thanks, Nirmit. Wendy, I'd love to bring you in on this one in terms of just with the rapid growth of digital learning and skill development in India, what collaboration models, picking up on what Nirmit just said, should be explored to better connect that skills acquisition and actual employment? And how can different stakeholders ensure that digital upskilling leads to meaningful job opportunities? It's really building on that from a corporate perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great segue, and I think we can all agree that we're seeing very similar pattern across our ecosystem. And I guess coming into it just purely from the technology lens, what we're seeing is that the knowledge gap is no longer in the foundation knowledge of the technology, but it is actually about the knowledge application. So when we look at collaborating models, we really need to go beyond kind of one-to-one relationships between a technology and perhaps an education provider, and really bring in the industry lens and the industry insights, which are becoming of greater value. And what we're finding as well is that anchoring the technology knowledge in those industry use cases actually provides great learning opportunities for the students or the learners, because they get a chance to practice some of the softer skills and the human skills that Man was talking about earlier. So it's the problem solving, it's the analytical thinking, which is really required. And the success in achieving that pathway for the learner drives the curiosity, which we actually need for the skills of tomorrow. So what we're finding is it's the mix of industry to provide the industry use cases, the technology partnerships in collaboration with educators is a really good foundational mix. But in the geos where we've seen really accelerated growth through my lens and the organizations that we do, we've had the government support, which has really accelerated the progress. So it's the policy reinforcement, it's the provision of educator enablement that really makes a difference when we're looking at digital skilling at pace. So I think for education providers and for EdTechs, there are key components that require anchoring in development of the curriculum. Those will be the industry use cases, they will be projects, capstone projects, internship opportunities, and opportunities to learn beyond classroom and really drive the application. And then to drive the full ecosystem collaboration, you need to be looking at multipliers. So collaborating organizations that bring in multiple industries, building innovation hubs or partnerships, private-public partnerships, that really is the ecosystem that we need to address this issue. Because after all, the digital skill gap really is reaching a level of societal impact, and addressing complex issues like these do require broader partnerships.
Thanks, Wendy. Saurabh, this is like the perfect time to bring you in terms of, I mean, as careers shift from that sort of single linear journey towards more dynamic journeys, marked by pivots, lateral moves, and multiple pathways to similar goals. How can we design clearer and more effective skills pathways? What key trends do you see shaping this space?
Yeah, Raghav, it's a great question, because if I build on some of the points made, I think the provocation that I would say is it's not only the educational institutions that don't know where employer skills are going, employers don't know where employer skills are heading. And so when someone talks about what the next generation of an AI engineer is going to be, who knows that, right? And so in a world of chaos and levels of unknown, how do you start building dynamic pathways? And so the way that I think about it is we need to do it in 2 steps. Step 1 is we need to admit that we have very flawed and biased systems. And so if we're helping a worker of today, we need to meet them where the biases are. And so what we did was we studied about 1 million job progressions, and we looked at what allows someone to actually drive economic mobility. And what we found is 2 things that I think we can do immediately. The first one is find gateway professions. So when someone is looking to get into an AI engineering job or the IT profession, it's going to be very hard if they're coming from manufacturing, if they're coming from healthcare, to get any hiring manager to even consider them for those roles. Now, if that same individual all of a sudden has some kind of IT support role, which is a much easier entry role to get into, their odds of then becoming an AI engineer multiply. And so the first step is, how do we create more visibility into what are some of these stepping stone or gateway professions, and get more people to understand these are a lot more accessible, and they can be ways that you can then go into much more resilient and growing job categories and things like that, versus just telling someone, go learn something or go get a degree or go get a certificate because you want to enter AI. That's going to be a lot harder. The second thing is when we looked at all of these progressions, almost irregardless of industry, what hiring managers are looking for are interpersonal skills. Matt alluded to that and everything else. And so in anything that we do, if we can be promoting and teaching interpersonal skills, that's going to help people move, and that's going to be durable across these pathways. So that's kind of step one. How do we actually just work within the kind of biases that we have? Step two is, now let's make that better and let's make that more dynamic. And there, I think there's several steps that we need to do. One, and I'm sure we're going to get into it in a second, we need to start creating a lot more vocabulary and common taxonomies around what are the skills that we're talking about. And we also can't overcomplicate the process. At the end of the day, what people and hiring managers do is when they don't have any opportunities, they rely on lazy proxies. Yeah. And what's a lazy proxy? Where did this person go to school? Or what job were they employed by? And so unless we can create some amount of shortcuts where they can understand within the 30 seconds that they're staring at someone or the 30 minutes that they're interviewing someone, we're going to fail. The second thing is, once we have that, how do we actually create more transparency between education providers and employers, that these things are going to change relatively quickly, and so we just have to increase the clock cycle, and all of my panelists talked about that. But the third thing that I think is also important, which we don't talk enough about, is we also need to create role models. So today, if you look at most students and workers, the way that they aspire or think about career ladders is they just look around, and based on what they see, that's what they believe they can do. And so today, if you ask someone, I want to go work for LinkedIn or Amazon, they know that they should go pursue technical credentials, and there's the pathway around that. If you ask someone, what would it mean to go become an entrepreneur? People don't exactly know where to start. And so what we also need to do is, for these new roles, we need to go and really spend time in communities to show people, here are pathways, and anyone can pursue them, and here's how you can do that. And unless you do that marketing effort, you're not going to actually create the pathway clarity that you want.
Thanks, Saurabh. I mean, Wendy, we've already touched upon parts of this sort of question, but it'd be great to get your perspective on, as emerging technologies like Gen AI reshape how work is performed, how do educators create that dynamic sort of role-specific learning pathway from your perspective, or corporate perspective, that prepare both the entry-level talent, but also the experienced professionals to effectively leverage that technology in their jobs? So what's the practical view perspective on this as well, please?
Well, I think what we can safely say is that generative AI is really a revolution for the industries, for jobs, and for entire functions. And we need to find a way to bring that knowledge, which is being generated in industry, back to the learner to ensure that they are ready. And what it really means for a curriculum design is modularity. We need the ability to adapt quickly and at pace, because the pace of innovation really has been accelerating and is further increasing with the easy access to relatively complex technology. And the advantage, I guess, on that technology is you can really look at student personalization, right? So you can use very easily generative AI to personalize the student learning and really tailor or make the process of new content integration much easier. But the one skill which is really important, I think, in the environment that we're seeing is the human to AI interface. And actually, that is a skill which is relatively new, and it's a skill which is essential to all the functions. And I think what we're seeing is, as the different job families merge, and we no longer have a really clear divide between what's a technical role and what's a line of business role, we need to ensure that the lines of business, functions and roles have that foundational knowledge, and that we are able to bring that AI to human interface skill set to the classroom. So as an example, we can have students who have an essay assignment. So do you give them an essay assignment and tell them, don't use AI to generate it? Or do you give them an assignment and say, go and use AI to generate it, and then spend the time in the classroom to discussing why is each output different, what prompts were used to generate it, and critically evaluate the output to improve on it. And I think that generates a much higher levels engagement and thinking, and again goes back to developing skills of problem solving and critical evaluation of the output that the students produce. So I think what this really means is AI lends itself to modularity, to credentials, and the ability to acquire small pieces of knowledge that will help those students and actually adult learner alike for upskilling when it comes to generative AI.
Thanks, Wendy. And I mean, picking up on the credentials point, question for Matt, and perhaps Nirmit, you want to sort of lean in on this one as well. I mean, with multiple skills taxonomies and the rapid pace of change, creating a common language around skills remains a challenge. How can platforms like LinkedIn and Apna enhance system linkages while ensuring the flexibility needed across different contexts?
Sure. Now that is a very complex sort of problem, taxonomy and having a common language. I just don't think it's ever going to have a single point of common language for our top taxonomy. I think one of the most important parts of it, though, is that the skills taxonomies need to be dynamic and evolving, and that is really important for the language and success of organisations, education institutions and individuals as well. So on our platform, and I mentioned before economic graph data that we have, we use that to ensure that our skills taxonomy is very dynamic and evolving every single day, which then enables individuals, organisations to match those skills better to jobs, skills that are rising, how to achieve them, transform, works as well. And we've now started working with a lot of organisations on how they can take their taxonomies, upload them and merge with ours, and better be able to plan for the future, recruit and ensure success with learning within the organisations as well. So I think the important part, I mean, commonality would be, fantastic, but making sure that any taxonomy you have or using is evolving and dynamic is really important.
I think so. Matt beautifully covered everything. Just one input. As we operate more at an entry-level workforce, what you realize, combining industries with skill technologies could also be a very interesting way. For example, if I'm doing field sales for credit card is very different than a field sales for selling a B2B software. So what if you could combine an industry factor and multiply it with a skill taxonomy is what I think so. At least that is one thing which we see on the early entry-level workforce. But I think so, Matt, I think so you covered almost everything, yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Nirmit. I mean, when we look at demographic trends globally as well, there's a role for India to play in sort of its young, and how its young workforce can help sort of power other economies where the demographic dividends are not as favorable. So I'd love to get sort of Nirmit and perhaps Saurabh, you can come in on this as well, around just how can India effectively scale its higher education system to position itself as a global human capital provider as well. So beyond the shores of India, what are your perspectives, I guess, on that?
So I can start. So I'm very bullish on India becoming the human capital provider, and a couple of reasons why, right? Just trying to put it onto a chessboard, like two biggest democracies of the world had a hopefully stable election. Markets are at least recognizing something. At the same time, we see a lot of conflict in Middle East. We see conflict happening across Ukraine, Russia. So a lot of that part of world will need a lot of rebuilding, like plumbers, technicians, a lot will be needed. Europe is, in terms of demographic, aging. Now, where is and India itself is growing much faster. So where is this human capital which will be needed in some shape or form will be provided. I think so India can be a very big provider for that because India has the youngest English-speaking skilled workforce of the world. Having said that, and we are all excited about that, I think so the big gap in my head is the gross enrollment ratio. Say today, the gross enrollment ratio is about 30%. Just for the crowd, gross enrollment ratio is how many people after 12th go and pursue some higher education in terms of a diploma, degree, or certifications. So today it is sub 30%. For us to be the $10 trillion and in future $50 trillion economy, it has to be north of 50%, which is where majority of advanced economies are. So, and the total number of young people in India are also doubling. So we will need 4x more seats in universities than what we have today. But the current physical university capacity can do only 1x. So where is the rest 3x going to come from? And the 3x, I believe, is going to come from online degrees, online certifications, and we see that. And when all of this goes online, I think so again, online comes with its own set of challenges on how do you build social equations with people. I think so that is one of the important skills as we build jobs. How do we go and solve for more industry readiness and future skills? So I think so providing and solving for that will be a very important piece for if India has to be the human capital provider, we will have to go and as India solve for that. But overall, the way everything is happening, I'm very, very, very bullish on India, and I feel that this is going to be the game changing. This is the decade for India. I'm very excited for what lies ahead for the country.
Thanks, Saurabh.
So I think building on that, if you look at the history of higher ed, what you see is that basically around the Industrial Revolution, you saw the formation of MIT and things like that, and they were designed for the industrial age. As you think about the fact that India needs to scale and build so many more universities and has the favorable demographics to do that, it has a tremendous opportunity to think of what actually is the university designed for the era of computing and AI. And if we think about that, that's an incredible opportunity that most advanced countries do not have, where you can really go after that. The second thing that's really in India's favor is around, if you look at even today's population in higher ed, compared to the size of the labor force, that's already around 5 to 10%. That ratio is much better than most economies, and so that's another one. And so if I look ahead, I think the tremendous opportunity, if I tie together a lot of the things that we talked about, is how can India lead in basically building a higher ed system that can play across 3 layers of skills. Layer 1 is still IQ. And so as we think about foundational numeracy and literacy and technical skills, how can India lead at basically creating a horizontal where every student understands computing in the same way that you're supposed to understand literacy and numeracy, so that then you can apply that to whatever profession or discipline that you need, instead of thinking of it as a silo of computer science versus humanities. Everybody is learning about computing and then can apply that, whether they're a philosopher, an engineer, or whatever else. EQ is that next layer, which is still those interpersonal skills of how can you make things incredibly more project-based? How do you spend half of your time maybe at a university, but half of your time with industry, since things are moving so quickly? And then the last part of that skill layer is what I call AQ, and so adaptability. And so IQ, EQ, AQ, and how do you kind of clean sheet a university that can actually do all 3 of those things? Because if we're being honest, I think most universities are failing to actually stay relevant on the IQ and often not doing the EQ and AQ parts.
Thanks, Rob. It's really interesting. It's a framework one can even apply individually, right? You can think of your own sort of skill set and sort of split it within those sort of categories, the 3 categories. I guess I think we probably got time for one last question, and I think something that's come up a lot is sort of social capital, and sort of what is the role of mentorships, I guess, in helping bridge social capital gaps, because not everybody has those connections. I mean, sort of you referred to it. There's a preconceived perception around introductions and the words that follow from there on. So I guess maybe a couple of seconds, I don't know who wants to take this as sort of open season, but mentorships, and what is the role of mentorships? I mean, Wendy, Matt, maybe something from you as well, because as corporates, this is something, how are you looking at mentorships as a way to sort of, help people bridge that social capital?
So I'll make a start. I think it's really one of the essential parts to cross the bridge between the entry-level talent and the knowledge that exists. And I think it's an important mechanism that we need to learn to scale through the tools and the technologies that we've now got available, because it's really important for people not just to understand the experience that exists, but also, I guess, the relevant context that many of those mentors can provide to inspire the younger generation and the entry-level generation to enter into some of their careers.
Mentorship been very important. I mean, even when you look at sort of remote hybrid working in the office as well. I mean, it's something that we look at is entry-level people that are coming into organisations, new starter, need that mentorship, face-to-face social interaction. So incredibly important to be able to provide that and do that. And then the other side is the mentorship around, learning how to learn and really being motivated to learn as well. You said it in your introduction, which is work is now, learning is work, and being able to instill that into employees coming into organisations through mentorship, coaching, leading by example is something that's going to be critically important.
Super. Thank you, Nirmit, Saurabh, Wendy, and Matt. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed moderating it. Thanks a lot. Thank you.